Good morning, everybody. I am calling to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors on November 17th, 2023, 9 a.m. Are we aware of any requests for just cause notifications?
No.
No. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Chair Campbell,
Here.
Vice Chair Shirley,
Here.
Director Leska,
Here.
Director Delgado,
Here.
Director Blackwell,
Here.
Director Askew, here, Director Peak,
Here.
Director Barber, Director Ferrito. We have a forum.
Thank you. Leo, would you please lead us in the pledge of
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, I just removed this special invite. All right, it's time for public communications. I'm opening that up. Anyone wishing to address the board on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. The public may comment on any other matter listed on the agenda at the time the matter is being considered by the board. For information about submitting public comments in writing in advance of the meeting, please see meeting information section of this agenda. If there's anyone in the chambers who'd like to address the board, please approach the podium. If you're online, raise your hand. All right, seeing no one, we're closing public communications. We're moving on to the consent. These matters include routine financial and administrative actions, which are usually approved by a single majority vote. Individual items may be removed from consent for discussion and action. The items are: 1, approved minutes of October 2023 regular board meeting. 2, approve report of disbursements and board and employee reimbursements for October 2023. 3, receive draft finance committee meeting minutes of November 1st, 2023. 4, approve revised operating engineers local 3 support unit pay schedule. 5, adopt resolution 2023-10 authorizing general manager to execute agreement with the State of California Department of Parks and Recreation for acceptance of materials. 6, authorize the general manager to execute a contract with California Premier Restoration of Monterey, California for materials recovery facility, franchise truck yard maintenance, and last chance mercantile exterior power washing in the amount of $110,000, which includes a 5% contingency. 7, approve early site closure on December 2nd, 2023, 2 p.m. 8, approve resolution 2023-11. Authorizing submittal of all Cal Recycle regional grant applications for which ReGen Monterey is eligible. 9, approve resolution 2023-12 of appreciation for retiring employees Sabrina Bailey, Waymaster. 10, approve resolution 2023-13 of appreciation for Director Lee Alaska for 20 years of service. Is there anyone on the board who would like to pull any item? I believe we are going to we will pull number 7, and we'll clarify that afterwards. Is there anyone in the public who would like to pull any of the items on the consent? If you're online, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Quick question on number 5. Helen, this will be updated, right?
Yes,
There's
so
some-
what you have in your packet is the draft. It's not the final version. So there are a few typos that the state is still trying to fix, and the schedule for the disposal fees is not the most current schedule. So we just sent that to them yesterday, again, to attach to the agreement. So what will be executed we'll make sure there's no typos and the most current schedule is attached to it.
Okay, great. So we'll approve it with the acknowledging that the corrections will be made. Great. All right. So if we can have a motion on the consent agenda with the exception of 7, appreciate it. Thank you, Wendy.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kim. All right. If there's no further discussion, As the public, I didn't specifically ask the public if they want to comment on this. Do they want to comment on the consent?
No.
Okay, thank you. Closing public comment on the consent. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Item 7, Helen?
So, unfortunately today, our employee Sabrina Bailey,
Oh,
who.
no, item 7. Let's
Oh, I'm
do
sorry.
the,
Are we doing
the-
that before the presentation?
yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do that.
We could take up
misunderstood.
that one item that was.
Yeah, we'll
Just to dispose of it.
yeah.
So, the request is for the holiday party. In order for many of our employees to be able to attend, we'd like to do an early closure, give them at least an extra 2 hours to get dressed and get ready for the holiday party, and to enable a lot more of our employees to be able to attend. So the request, as we see it, is we would like for it to be on a go-forward basis for every year to be included as part of our
Motion today.
motion to.
Okay, so let's do make this go on in perpetuity, is my understanding. All right, so with that in mind, is there a motion to
So moved.
thank you. Thank you, Leo. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the early closure on December 2nd. And we will continue this policy into the future. Is there any comment from the public on this? So please approach the podium or make yourself known online. All right, saying no on closing public comments. We have a motion, a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Now we're moving on to recognition and presentations, item 11. Hello, thank you.
So, unfortunately today, our employee Sabrina Bailey, who is retiring after 20 years of service, is not able to join us today. We wish her the best of luck, and certainly we appreciate all the services that she has performed for the district. She was one of our waymasters here at the school. I mean, 20 years of service is right on the time. So, yeah, so I believe you. Hopefully she'll be here in January. If not, we will be forwarding the resolution.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm always impressed with the loyalty and the time people put in here. I think that's what helps make it run so efficiently. I'm sorry to lose. All right, thank you. So moving on, we have the presentation, item 12.
So, do you want to do this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so today we would like to present a resolution to Director Leo Lasco for 20 years of service. And on behalf of the ReGen Monterey team, we would definitely like to express our gratitude for all your service, dedication, loyalty, and especially the guidance that we have received over the years. And so I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I can have a resolution, so I can read it too, because it says a lot. Thank you very much.
I think that's in front of the region.
Yeah, if I could present this to you. Yeah. So in appreciation of 20 years of service, Leo Lasco, whereas he has represented Pebble Beach Community Services District on the ReGen Monterey Board of Directors from January 2004 to present, and whereas he has served on various committees, including the Personnel and Finance Committee, and served as Vice Chair and Chair, and whereas Director Leo Lasco became Board Chair during a critical period in ReGen Monterey's history, and his knowledge of engineering principles, prudent fiscal guidance, and strategic planning served to launch ReGen Monterey into an amazing period of financial stability, infrastructure development, and organizational balance. And whereas his guidance, leadership, and financial stewardship have contributed greatly in building the agency's infrastructure for solid waste management, including a 5 megawatt landfill to gas energy plant, franchise hauler truck yard and maintenance facility, materials recovery facility, last chance mercantile, and long-term landfill disposal capacity, all at one of the lowest rates in the region and the state. And whereas his many contributions have helped ReGen Monterey continually fulfill its mission of doing more to waste less, receiving awards of Gold Excellence for gas utilization 2007 and Gold Excellence for composting 2014. From the Solid Waste Association North America. While I think it's from while the California Resources Recovery Association recognized ReGen's leadership in organics 2014 and Zero Waste Achievement 2016. And whereas he has provided a steady hand, calm demeanor, and great sense of humor, and served as a member by example of his longstanding leadership for those around him. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors and Monterey Regional Waste Management District, doing business as ReGen Monterey, hereby commends and expresses its appreciation for 20 years of continuous and faithful service to Leo Lasco, and congratulates him on his retirement from the ReGen Monterey Board of Directions, passed and adopted this day, 17th day of November, 2023 by the Board of Directors. Leo, this is yours.
Do you mind if I get my voice?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Come on over. Helen, you too.
Thank you, guys.
Good, everyone.
That everybody?
Perfect. All right, well,
Thank you.
yes, that's fine.
First of all, I'd like to introduce my replacement, Peter McKee. And in the back there, Peter, please stand up, please. There you go. He's a financial wizard, good friend, and he'll make a great director up here. I'd like to share with the other directors up here, the members board. One of the first things I learned when I got on this board was don't miss a meeting. I missed my first meeting. I ended up at the next meeting being the chair for the next 5 years. I'm retiring. Enjoyed it here. It was a great time. I really enjoyed it here. A lot of exciting stuff happened the last 20 years, and fortunately, the old bod is starting to get kind of tired. You know, the result of it, you know, too many years of misspent youth.
Well said, you.
And had a lot of fun along the way. A lot of time in the Army, and almost as much. I've been on this board almost as long as I was in the Army. So it's those two things about the only thing I've done that's been worthwhile in my life. So yeah, I enjoyed it, having a great time. I'm gonna spend more. I'll still be at the Pebble Beach board for another. My term isn't up until next year, so I haven't decided whether I'll redo myself over there or not. But it's time for new blood on this board, and I can't think of anybody better to do it than Peter. And even got my GM showed up here today.
Hello, Mike.
But again, I appreciate the resolution hanging that on my trophy wall, which one of the Zoom meetings is always behind me. But I enjoyed it, and thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Right, from what I get is no one has any excuses until 20 years passes. All right, thank you, Leo, and you will be missed. You will be missed. All right,
I guess I want to say something.
yeah, please do.
Leo, I don't want to let it go without telling you what you've meant to me. I've always looked up to you because you have this unusual way of being blunt. At the same time, you're humorous, it's light, and you're serious. and your experience. And it's just it's an exemplary combination of traits. And I've always enjoyed listening to you, and I was always disappointed when I disagreed with you because you were usually right. But the guidance that you provide the rest of us just by being here, but then also by your input, those two things has been a real treat for me to, try to be better myself by, watching you and how you conduct yourself at these meetings. Thank you.
I'll best be able to get down the weeds with the guy and the other engineers, during our board meetings, but I always enjoyed that. Or tape back and. Right.
Thank you, Bruce. Well said. Okay, so, moving on, we have an update on, Monterey projects, and I see, we have some illustrious guests here as well.
That's correct. So today we have Director of our Engineering, Guy Petrover, who's going to be introducing Jared from Black and Beach, who's going to provide us an update.
Good morning, Chair Campbell and Board of Directors. This presentation is an update on the progress of the joint feasibility study that ReGen and M1W are collaborating on. It's titled Renewable Energy Project, which is a catch-all for a whole handful of activities that are being studied as part of the feasibility study. So the M1W board received this presentation earlier, and representing the collaborative team is Derek Wurst of Black and Beach. He's been retained by the two agencies to be a study coordinator for the feasibility study and assist the two agencies in our work with the consultant GHD. So, Derek, all yours.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, my name is Derek Worst, and I'll be presenting an update on the Monterey renewable energy projects. I'm a project manager at Black and Beach, and as Guy had mentioned, was retained on this particular study to help be a liaison between the agencies and the consultant that was hired to do the technical work, GHD. So as part of this project, I'm discussing what's the first phase of this, project to enhance the energy resiliency for both agencies that have come together, Monterey One Water and ReGen, to identify opportunities to pull resources together and, mitigate some of the utility outages that you may have been experiencing, as well as look at beneficial ways to use your resources in both landfill gas and digester gas. So with that, I'll advance. Toggling a couple of computers here since I have my speaker notes in front of me here. I wanted to draw your attention to this particular graphic, which shows how some of your existing resources are going to be enhanced and some new additional supply for energy will be added as part of the overall vision for the renewable energy projects. Currently, there's landfill gas that's produced that's used for generating electricity. And there's also at Monterey One Water's facilities, digesters that produce biogas to be also used in their co-heat and power generation systems. At Monterey One Water's facility, they have a solar array. And as part of the overall vision of this is what other types of renewable energy resources could be added to help complement your existing portfolio of distributed energy resources, including battery energy storage and potentially wind power as well. The next, oops, on the wrong direction, sorry. The next slide shows kind of the overall schedule of this program, if you will. It's an endeavor, if I might say. We're only in the first phase of this project at this time, where we're looking at the feasibility of some of these components that will comprise the overall renewable energy vision. So we're looking at how we may be able to take organics and divert those from landfill to be used in a co-digestion process for Monterey One Water's digesters to help increase the amount of gas produced. We're also looking to see what we can do in terms of developing a microgrid that will electrify both campuses to use the electricity that you're generating in-house and also be able to share that resource, across the fence, if you will, to your neighbors, generating electricity for Monterey One Water's advanced water purification plant currently. So as the results of this study will help to inform the next phase where it becomes a bit more of a detailed engineering analysis on the most feasible options and plan for the design of those and determine then what will be the construction phasing as well as the way in which the projects will be delivered. And then a period of time in which the projects will be permitted and designed and then construction with the intent to have some of these new facilities up and running before the end of the decade. The next graphic kind of shows a little bit of the phase one feasibility study. I realize that this, zoomed out perspective, you can't necessarily see all the components, but I will say that there are essentially two main tasks, if you will. A study that evaluates various components of what it takes to bring in organics and convert that to electricity. And then another component of the study focused predominantly on the microgrid for the facilities. And this is all sort of underpinned with an economic analysis. Since we're not really just doing things for appearance's sake, we want to make sure that whatever projects are being recommended have a benefit to the combined ratepayers for both facilities. Oops. Kind of hopping around here. In the phase one study deliverables, there's been a number of technical documents that have been produced by some of the subject matter experts of GHD. The Organics to Energy, or O2E study to short, is comprised of these following deliverables as shown here. It starts with just identifying where are we currently at in terms of the existing conditions, what types of potential improvements need to be made with your facilities to be able to support the vision of sending organics to digestion for biogas. There's been an emphasis on identifying what is the characterization of the waste streams that are coming in and how does that convert into a viable feedstock for the digesters to produce the gas. There's been a focus on what needs to be done to take those high solids and process them such that they can be made into a readable feedstock for use in co-digestion. And then on the opposite end, with the additional biosolids that are generated, what are we going to look at in terms of disposal of those that don't include landfilling them in the future? Can we use those for some sort of beneficial purposes? And then ultimately, we have now also just received a biogas utilization study, which indicates what is the best use of the gases that are produced, both the landfill gas and the increased digester gas that's expected through co-digestion. And that study has just been received as of a couple of weeks ago and is currently under review by the agency's staff. As I mentioned, the two components were, the Organics to Energy study, and then also the microgrid. Now, the microgrid had started as well with kind of identifying what are the baseline conditions. And as part of that, baseline conditions, there's a current project undertaken by ReGen to construct a 21 kV medium voltage interconnection line between your co-generation facilities to the advanced water purification facility at Monterey One Water. So that was part of the strategy with how can we build a microgrid around that, intertie. And then as part of that, looking at what needs to be done in terms of supporting that microgrid. looking at the loads both now and in the future, what we anticipate seeing coming in and in the future. As part of this, also, we look at the overall study and come up with what are our options economically, what are the payback periods for some of those various components, and how do we structure that in terms of the way in which the projects will be delivered and phased over time. It doesn't necessarily need to be done all at once, and also some consideration about which agency will be the lead for various components of the overall renewable energy projects. As part of the O2E study deliverables, just to expand on that side of the house, there's been a series of 5 sort of technical memorandums, if you will, reports that have been published by GHD and their sub-consultants and technical subject matter experts. As I mentioned, it started with the existing conditions to identify what are the constraints perhaps that we may need to contend with for upgrading facilities just to be able to support some of the organics to energy. Currently, Monterey One Water is in the process of upgrading their digesters to handle high solids with improved mixers that will accept a source separated organic slurry to be used for co-digestion. As I mentioned before, we needed to identify what is the characterization of the current waste streams coming into ReGen to be identifying like what technologies will work to process those as part of the high solids waste processing, as well as what are the opportunities and where would that resource come from within the areas that you serve. The biosolids management was looking at other potential paths for those biosolids that don't include landfilling them in the future, as well as addressing some contaminants of concern, namely PFAS is one that has come up as being a recent interest of being able to address and the potential impacts that it has on our environment. And as I mentioned, we just received the biogas utilization report, which the staff is currently reviewing at this time. It outlines a few different scenarios. One is kind of along the lines of what you've been currently doing with taking landfill gas and using all of that to generate electricity and selling the excess energy to the grid. But there's also a couple of additional scenarios that say, well, with the excess gas, is it possible to then condition it in a way that would be accepted for a direct pipeline injection? Renewable natural gas is one of the things that PG&E is currently looking into adding into their system. So initial discussions have started with PG&E about what the pipeline capacity is to support that, as well as other options for biogas utilization, which include some of what is currently happening with the CNG fueling station, conditioning the gas so that it can be used for fueling the fleets that collect the garbage and things for your contract haulers. Now I'll point out what's kind of been developed on the microgrid. We now have sort of a base case, if you will, that's been developed by GHD, which is a pretty interesting way in which the two agencies can work together to share that electrical resource. This map that's shown on the aerial is the current layout for the 21 kV medium voltage project that will connect ReGen's generating facilities with Monterey One Water's advanced water purification facility. And we've gone through some initial legal review to clear any potential issues with allowing for that energy to transfer over to a different adjacent property. Both ReGen and Monterey One, as being public entities, are allowed to do that under California Public Utilities Commission rules that allow an over the fence transfer of the energy that's generated on site, on premises from either Monterey One or ReGen to each other's facilities. So that legal analysis has been done, and we've cleared that part of this. And then the unique part about the microgrid concept is it allows for what has been dubbed as nested microgrids, such that both ReGen can operate independent from Monterey One Water or combine resources together. So in the event that either one or the other has an outage, it doesn't necessarily affect both. Or, if ReGen is out, then Monterey One, if they have the energy, can also backfeed to ReGen. ReGen is, in this scenario, the primary power producer with the landfill gas and the amount of energy that's generated, but it works both ways. It's bi-directional. And this shows that as this kind of schematic, and I'll start with ReGen in the lower part of the screen as being now currently providing that power. It sells it wholesale to the California ISO. And then the idea is with the construction of the 21 kV intertie that goes to the advanced water purification facility at Monterey Water, that will power that facility in its entirety. But a future expansion of the base case allows for the other areas of Monterey One Water's facilities to be connected as well, including their regional treatment plant and the Salinas Valley recharge project that also is part of Monterey One Water's portfolio of water treatment. There are currently now 3 independent PG&E drops serving Monterey One Water, but that may be then consolidated to just one power drop from PG&E that will serve as a backup in the event that PG&E's powers are as needed. If, for whatever reason, ReGen or Monterey One doesn't have enough power to power both campuses. But right now, with the amount of landfill gas that's produced, it'll be enough to power both facilities, even with some provisions for future build out. And I'll leave with this kind of quote here. It's from a famous electrician or comedian, as the case may be, but his statement is that electricity is just really organized lightning, and it kind of draws kind of some similarities to what we've been doing here. You can imagine that this study has, had the collective wisdom of both agencies and direction from both, as well as, the consultant with their technical expertise and, trying to corral that, if you will. But the common vision or lightning rod in this case is, the renewable energy projects that both agencies have embarked on. And so I'm excited to be a part of that vision, and happy that this is kind of going forward in this manner. So with that, I guess I can open it up for any potential questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Derek. Leo?
Yeah, good question. Are there any issues associated with the fact that the digester gas and the landfill gas that we produce are chemically different?
Yes. Right now, we need to look at gas conditioning systems as potentially a future project. There tends to be a higher quality with the digester gas that's produced because of, the vessel that it's contained with. With the landfill gas, when you're pulling in the landfill gas, you may also pull in nitrogen or other types of contaminants into the landfill gas, which require additional conditioning to make it viable for direct pipeline use or something of that nature. But the intent is to look at this holistically for both agencies and say, what is the best strategy for using the gas, and what is it going to cost to be able to condition it to a level that would be acceptable for renewable natural gas in the pipeline. Some of the thoughts were potentially around using the digester gas to power CNG and RNG, and then maybe just focusing the landfill gas for electricity generation, as is the current situation. So there's still some considerations there about the overall biogas utilization, but to your point, yeah, there are differences with those two fuel streams, if you will.
Like,
Thank you very much for your presentation. You didn't discuss finances. You made one comment about it. Maybe this is not the time. But I'd like to hear more in the future about the organization of the finances for these projects, or if you put them all in a bundle, what does that look like? Obviously, I'm mostly interested in ReGen's, how the finances are organized.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit premature yet, since the economic analysis hasn't yet been completed, but I will share that there's various economic models being produced by GHD that evaluate the combined agencies kind of perspective for their investments, as well as what makes sense for each individual agency maybe to take on, independent of the other. There will also be some discussion about financing, for these, whether it's a public-private partnership or other types of ways in which these projects can come to fruition. So absolutely, but one of the main things is, as I mentioned earlier, not just doing things for appearance sake, but to ensure that whatever opportunities are put forward, that they show some financial benefit to both entities and to the ratepayers.
Thank you for your presentation. So the original graphic we've been seeing over and over again also includes solar, battery, and wind. Is that
Yes.
also part of this phase study?
Yes, as part of the base case microgrid report, the consultant GHD has explored some additional options for solar and wind and battery. And those components would be part of the overall portfolio, if you will, of future projects. So right now, one of the recommendations, for instance, is with the existing solar array at Monterey One Water, for them to buy out on that power purchase agreement and have that as part of their own ownership, and then expand it as well. The battery energy storage is part of the overall solution of what may be viable in terms of retiring some of the old diesel generators that are used for emergency backup. So battery energy storage also helps to leverage some of those periods of time in which you have peak demands. So that's definitely part of the overall strategy for the electrification of both campuses.
Great, and then just a couple other questions. High solids, can you give me a definition of what those are?
Yeah, probably a guy could probably speak to it a little bit better than I can, but it's essentially, things that are, thrown through refuse like apple cores and, some of the larger types of materials that come in that need to be broken down in a way that they can actually be microbially digested. So a lot of the pre-processing technologies end up using like a hammer mill to, get into a pulp or some type of system such that it can make it into a much finer type of material. High solids could be anything from eggshells to like cabbage heads, and I don't know what else.
Well, certainly, but I think the high solids topic is more fundamental to a change in the wastewater treatment process. The sanitary sewer system, currently serves, residents and businesses, and that the solids content in that fluid that's being wastewater that's being delivered to the plant is generally of a lower range of solids content. And the change in the industry more recently is to introduce other organic matter into the wastewater process and to treat and decompose those organics outside of a landfill and create a biogas. And that addition of those organics is coming in at a higher solids content. And so that group of new material of a processed solid organics that's being processed down into a slurry, that slurry has a high solids content. And that's what the reference is here in the study, is introducing that kind of material into an existing standard wastewater treatment process. And there's impacts that material causes and requires that there be different equipment to handle that higher solids content. And so that's really the differentiation that's being made in the discussion. Currently.
So in the graphic, when I had organic waste, we're really looking at the organics we are pulling in from our haulers. And then the high solids is really focusing on M1's
Well, it's,
organics.
yes, but it's taking the solid organics that are received here in the form of food scraps,
Okay.
transforming those materials by processing them into a slurry,
Okay.
and then introducing that slurry, which is a liquid and solids, and the solids are much higher content, introducing that slurry into the co-digestion process at the wastewater treatment plant.
So it's a combined
Yes.
thing that we're not doing now, obviously, but that's potential. for
Right.
that.
Yeah, and it's not completely unheard of. I mean, the same type of process you can find at any garbage disposal in your sink, you know, it would have been akin to something along those lines, but now at this type of scale, it's a lot larger.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good, Bruce.
To follow up on Kim, right now, we're taking the organics to Keith Day company. The reason we would switch to what Guy just described, is it economical or is it more power? You know, what would be the reason?
So there could be multiple reasons. Certainly, the potential for a larger amounts of power production, or alternatively, a source of gas for CNG fuel production. Because the biogas at the wastewater treatment plant is a cleaner biogas. And so it's more easily transformed into a compressed natural gas, CNG.
Okay, so in summary, it would be a higher use than just compost going through Keith Day.
That would be one potential reason for the change. Magnitude of scale is also another potential reason for a change. If the amount of solid organics coming to the district is large, there may be a more efficient process of those materials into a co-digestion stream.
So if we overwhelm Keith Day, this would help as a relief valve, as one of the reasons to do it.
Sure, it could be, the food waste could be managed out of the green waste process, and green waste, as communities grow and potentially create more green waste, could backfill the loss in that same volume of food waste, but at the Keith Day facility.
Okay, right, I wanna give a shout out to Paul Shudo, who's here, because I respect him so much, whenever I see him, I sit up a little bit taller. Paul's here. Beyond my game. But I have so many questions because, like, you had me on the first slide, like in Disneyland, I can't believe this might all happen, but it's realistic. Anything this district does and Paul does over the fence is real stuff. It makes it even more exciting. So I think I'll talk to staff offline first and then maybe go to you if there's anything left over. But just a couple of questions. You said nested microgrid. Does that mean one grid or two grids?
Well, it is essentially, you know, like one grid overall. I mean, right now, PG&E is operating the grid. Within the microgrid climate that we kind of created or envisioned here with the two campuses is that you could each kind of operate independently as your own microgrid, or combine the two into one kind of community microgrid. Initial concepts were to look at PG&E's community microgrid enablement program, which could potentially expand that beyond your borders of the two properties. That you might be then looking at what other, you know, external customers you could provide power to. You know, that was started out as a conversation initially, but in the terminology of PG&E, they look at the microgrid as just a backup type of situation and not necessarily the primary mode of operation. So we wanted to be careful with how we use that terminology microgrid as it relates to what we're trying to achieve with the renewable energy projects. Because really what we're trying to do is be somewhat independent and autonomous from PG&E. PG&E will serve as a backup, but the primary source of power would be with the two agencies. So you'll kind of chart your own destiny, if you will. But if in the future that's expanded to think about more of the community involvement, then potentially this, microgrid that you've established here for the two agencies can be expanded beyond the properties to include others potential within, the realm. And it would then be a conversation we'd be having more with PG&E and how that was structured.
Okay, so if this all happens with microgrid, would there be one electrical, like a main sub panel or main facility sitting somewhere, or would there be one on each side of the fence?
Yeah,
I think I can answer your question. So recognize there's two separate agencies here. AWPF is one electrical service for that particular facility. It's separated from the rest of the wastewater treatment plant. And then ReGen on our side has our own electrical system. The microgrid is to connect the two together. But recognize there's segments within that connection. There's an M1W segment and a ReGen segment. The nested microgrid is a recognition that M1W has power generation at their cogen plant inside of the two agency microgrid. So that's why it's referenced as nested. And because there's two separate systems, M1W has the ability to operate under their own power should there be a need for the ReGen's electrical system to be offline.
Okay,
That's how it looks at from a nested standpoint.
that's great, thanks.
Yeah.
So just two more questions. One is very brief. How do we get a copy of the presentation? Because it's full of stuff I want to study.
Oh, absolutely. I can make that available after this.
Okay.
I'll work with Ida to make that happen.
Okay, and then the last question at a very high, sort of high political level, with 3CE Energy, community energy organizations that we're part of. I think that PG&E sees it as a take on their turf, and so they're constantly battling at the CPUC. Is this kind of like that, where you said they see it as a backup, but we're kind of seeing it as a primary, but Rule 218 allows us to do what we're planning, but is it always going to be a generational fight between PG&E over, they don't want everyone to do this because would they be more out of business, kind of like the community energy?
Correct. Yeah, and that's why we have to approach these conversations delicately, with the PG&E. We're doing this, and ultimately PG&E will lose revenue as a result of no longer providing the power to the facilities. So we recognize that as part of the overall discussions. That's why we went through the process of doing some of the legal review first to make sure that we've got that ironed out before going any further, such that we'll be armed with the information that can counter whatever PG&E may have, in terms of combativeness against losing potential customers such as ReGen and Monterey One Water. But I will point out that through the studies on this project, ReGen and Monterey One Water are at the end of the line, and there have been a number of disruptive outages. So there's credibility there for why these agencies will seek to want to have more reliable energy sources going forward. So there's some arguments to counter why the agencies will be looking at doing this. But now that we have explored options for what it might take to do biogas to direct pipeline injection, PG&E now has an interest again in that resource. So it may be perceived as a bit of a trade-off. No longer are we necessarily consuming energy or electricity. We're doing that independently for our own purposes, but we're producing gas that can be used for distribution through PG&E's net gas pipeline network.
When you said that, it could spread, it could spread in the distant future to involve community, I get excited, but I would suppose that PG&E would feel threatened.
There could be, but they also recognize the need to address, their infrastructure as well. It's not unknown that PG&E has a lot of issues with their aging infrastructure, and they've been working, to try and correct a lot of those problems. So with this, it's a way in which PG&E can have more reliable service to the communities they serve with a microgrid, especially with disadvantaged communities. That's one of the things that PG&E is really interested in, supporting a community microgrid enablement program for disadvantaged communities that might have issues associated with power disruptions. So yeah, I think that PG&E could see that as being capitalizing on their turf, but that's why it was only during emergency situations that we've got this source of what would be a backup power. And we talked a little bit about how in the future, maybe, this area becomes a bit of an emergency resiliency center for the community, because of the power that's generated here can keep the lights on for essential services, for which, both agencies already currently provide, but then, a community benefit as well for additional resiliency in the event of an emergency. So those are some of the benefits for why, the microgrid could go outside of the boundaries of your properties.
Thank you, Derek. Thanks.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Jerry?
Yeah, could I also get copied?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it can be made available to all the board members.
I appreciate that.
Except you.
Also, for the ad hoc, could we get an agenda for our next meeting that includes that information? We talked about, you had some new information.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of nice to be able to review. Because we haven't had a meeting in a few months. It'd be nice to have
Absolutely.
stuff to look into. But
Yeah, we didn't have a whole lot of new material to prepare, and a lot of it's currently in review, so we don't want to present anything that's kind of half-baked yet. But I will say, just, stay tuned, because, this is still
Well, if
like.
you just send me the
first phase.
recipe,
Yeah.
I don't need the whole thing.
Yeah, I want to make sure that what you're seeing is going to be close to the finished product. So any of the key decisions that have been made are certain things that we would elevate to all of your attention. And yeah, just excited about the shape that this study is taking and how it charts the path for some of the future projects.
Also, I'm curious, because currently our food waste goes into the yard container. If in the future all this is up and running, then it seems like that food waste should not get all contaminated with yard waste, but go straight. Are we gonna change up the whole process and possibly have cans out that just have food waste in them?
It's a strategy for sure. I mean, right now, one of the easiest things is, to just commingle the food waste with your
Right.
yard waste. And I think, the first resource that we'd be looking at is where it could be commercially source separated organics. So it's not, with the yard waste, but or potentially there's, food waste receiving stations that are, throughout the community to be able to allow residents to do that, or even a fourth, container that you would keep that separate from yard waste. But there's a lot there, in terms of what it would take to, get the community on board with, a new way of, disposing of their wastes.
Yeah, having food waste containers throughout the peninsula that people could take advantage of. I don't think anybody's gonna take advantage of it personally, maybe 3 or 4 people, but
Yeah, we'll
just my
see,
guess.
that's part of like informing the community about the benefits. And I think that's the next step, is once we have the projects identified, is engaging the community about it as well, and some public outreach as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Real quick, just the economics, I know you're not done with that, but sneak peek, what's your general feel?
Well, we still have to get consensus on the scenarios. That's hard to say exactly where we're going to be in economics. Although I will say that right now, it does appear as though there's more financial viability around the idea of sending gas to PG&E's pipeline than just the traditional, means of converting that to electricity and putting that out on the grid. So I think there's a better market for the gas than the electricity, and that's kind of just a nutshell of what we've seen thus far with the biogas utilization study. So I'd say stay tuned, but that might be a sneak peek for you.
Can I ask you a follow-up to that? Are we talking millions? Or are we talking tens of millions?
Oh, for the value of what the
To
gas is?
build to
Or,
construct by twenty
oh,
twenty-eight?
probably 10 millions plus. I mean, there's, on the order of that magnitude.
Tens of millions or 10 million plus?
Tens of millions.
Tens of millions.
Tens of millions.
Tens of millions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine, that's all I want.
Some of these facilities are not cheap, and it's specialized technology, so right now, for instance, Paul, you might say what the upgrade of just the digesters is 7 million?
Yeah, please, Bob, I was gonna ask you anyway, if you have anything to add?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Derek. Thank you, Chair Campbell, members of the board. My name is Paul Shudo. I'm the general manager at Monterey One Water. Derek does an incredible job of walking a tightrope with all these questions from you, since he's working for both of our agencies. I'll try to be a little more blunt if that's okay.
Leo would like that.
I like that too, Leo. I've always loved your questions, so thank you very much and congratulations. In reference to the tens of millions, yeah, it's a big project, and hopefully we can take it in little bites. That, like, Guy is already working on the direct connection to our advanced water purification facility. That's one chunk. We, Monterey One, got a grant, about a 50% grant, to upgrade our digesters to accept those high solids slurries to increase gas production. Just mixers on our digesters, our existing infrastructure, it's about an $8.5 million project. And we received about $4.25 million in grants. So Mayor Peak, to your question on finances, yeah, we're still looking at it. We're still looking at the feasibility study, but we're aggressively looking at how we can best position ourselves for both federal and state grant funding, because this sort of project is in the wheelhouse from Department of Energy, Cali Cycle, and others. So we're waiting much for the feasibility study, the information to better inform those applications so we have a better chance. Ultimately, though, you're right. We need to figure out, how do we pay for all of this? Some of it's grants, some of it's a reduction in cost of energy to us, or an increase on what you're selling your energy for. So there's a lot of headroom that we can play with. At this point, that's sort of the snapshot, because we don't know. But there are a lot of possibilities. And we think we all know that energy is increasing at a tremendous rate. A UC Davis study from a number of years ago showed about an 8% increase per year over the next 10 years. So just look at that compounding effect and what we can do. I very much appreciate ReGen Monterey and your board and your staff, because I think this is an inflection point on what we can do for our community. Your 9 board members, our 10 board members, we have an overlap of 6 member entities. So I often view it as, it's sort of like one campus that we can benefit our community. And so I very much appreciate all of your involvement. And I appreciate that Felipe is a Raiders fan, because it makes it a lot easier to communicate with him. I don't know if that answers any of your questions, if I can say that else.
You do know they're in Las Vegas, so they're no longer here.
You notice I said Raiders and not Oakland Raiders, or Las Vegas, or Los Angeles.
Yeah, Mexico.
Yeah, when,
Yeah, thank you. This was a great presentation. Thank you for the work that's been done. I know it's been feels like it's like, oh, like we're moving forward and then moving back, and it speaks significantly to me, like when you're trying to work with 2 really large organizations with different missions, different groups, but there are these overlaps. I think that there's very clearly there's risk and there will be significant financial investment for us to move forward to, do what we're talking about. But the thing that I also recognize is there's significant risk, if we don't do anything. There's significant risk to maintain the status quo. And so I really value that, like, everyone leaning into sort of a path that hasn't been paved yet, and that we're thinking innovatively, we're thinking beyond the status quo, we're thinking about what the future looks like. And within all of this, there are these alignments of national interest, state interest for resiliency, for climate action. And I don't know how to, the right way to talk about it, but you talked about emergency, resiliency, but really there's sort of like this, these are wastewater treatments, our waste management, in any time of crisis, for us to be very solid and be able to continue the continuation of our operations, despite what might be happening around us, and to be a location where we have solid, we've got water moving, we've got electricity moving. I think as we look around the world, realizing how tenuous some of those infrastructure systems are, this really is sort of a much larger vision for how do we make sure that right here in Monterey County, we have a couple campuses that are here and they're functioning regardless of what else is happening. I think that there's so much, we're not talking about that on a broad scale, but it's a very real issue. And I think the federal government is looking at that and talking about it more. So as we think about where do we find these dollars to make these investments, some of it's going to be on us, and some of it's going to be a risk that we carry. But there's also, I think we're moving in the same direction as some sort of broader thinking. And so we're on the right path. In order to be access any of those dollars, we've got to have a project ready and sort of have done this prep work so that we can access the dollars that could be out there when we become available. So I'm excited. I know it's been a heavy lift for both agencies. But Jason, you've just been steadfast and pushing forward with ad hoc, making sure everyone shows up, making sure we're, overcoming challenges as they've arisen. And I'm optimistic about where we're headed.
Great.
Yeah, thanks.
May I just add something? And certainly Guy or Chair Campbell, you can pull me off whenever you want, because I get super excited about this stuff because it is so good for the community, the economics, the environment. In 2017, we dealt with about a 5-day power outage. The wastewater treatment system and the landfill didn't have power for 5 days. That is untenable. So resilience is certainly one of the key issues. In looking at the point on the horizon, whenever we get there, besides just us, some of the grants that we're looking at have components of how can you reach out to the community with this project? And we've looked at, not that it's going to happen, but some of the possibilities are battery storage, whoever brought that up. In a long-term power outage, when the community doesn't have power, doesn't have internet, there's a possibility of building into a grant to have a mobile internet that you have batteries charged, you shove it onto a vehicle, you send it out to Target or you send it out to Walmart, where it's a mobile hotspot. So many of the grants that we're looking at have that connectivity to the community that I think is beyond the benefit that I think we all looked at, because we're all unfortunately recovering engineers. No offense, Leo, but those other tangential benefits to all of us, I think, is what it can be really exciting and help position us even further for those federal and state funds. So,
yeah, but if I could tie a bow on it, the vision was created with awareness of the variety of goals and the ownership of those goals. And so what, said another way, what you expressed, the director asked you, there's an alignment of goals from an agency perspective, from a two-agency perspective, from a local community perspective, from a state perspective, a federal perspective, and a global perspective. there's goals for each of those that can be met by this approach. And that's in having the alignment of goals creates more support for the endeavor. Also creates some access to financing, which wasn't previously existed. And so that's how these larger lifts get accomplished.
Thank you. I don't normally do this, and I know we have a lot going on today, but since it's such a big issue, I will open it up to brief public comments if there's any member of the public who would like to give their 2 cents.
Mike Dickenfeld, Beast Community Services, I'm a recovering engineer as well. And I get along great with Felipe and Paul because I'm a Raider fan also. But I just wanted to address the Mayor Peak's comment. While we don't have the specifics of the finances, you can see where there's a lot of potential. I think, what do you sell your power for? 3 to 4 cents? Yes. What do you buy your power for? 17, 18. There's a lot of room in there for everybody to make some money. I think that when you start going out for the grants and everything, one of the things, you were talking about the most cost-effective way to do the gas, but there's also a public relations or a conceptual benefit that if we can take the garbage trucks come in, drop off the stuff, we put it in the landfill, we pull the gas out, we can create compressed natural gas, and we put it back in the engines. So the trucks are running around on the stuff they're carrying, and I think there's a benefit for that. And then just a word of caution on the food waste. I mean, there's SB 1383 has some really strange rules. They're really trying to micromanage from the state. And I think that this is perfect timing because we're about halfway through our franchise agreements. And basically, any kind of change like that is going to have to be done in conjunction with the franchise agreement. And again, this program, we've been talking about in the TAC for 15 years. And so it's not a project, it's a program. You're going to be continually going on. And it's really exciting to see progress between the two agencies. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you, Mike. Anyone else? All right, just seeing no one online and no one in the chambers closing public comment. That's thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation and clearly we're all excited about it and yeah, that's it's 10 years we'll be very amazed and thanks for getting this started as well. All right. Moving on to discussion action items, item 14.
So item 14 will be tabled for the next board meeting in January, as we will be in December. The audit has not been finalized by the auditor. We have a new audit partner and there's been change in staffing, so it's taking a little longer than we look at the plan.
Okay, great. We're able yet until January. So.
Sure, we do have a hand raised. I'm not sure if that's.
No, that's the cursor.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it took me a while to.
Oh my God.
It's not me before too. All right. Yeah, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 15. Approved declaration of surplus equipment, the S 154 2002 Ford F-150, MR 37 2009 Volvo roll-off truck, and the MR 38 2009 Volvo roll-off truck. And as surplus and authorize the disposition of multiple ReGen Monterey assets by selling them for scrap, seal bid solicitation or third party auction. Ellen, is there?
Thank you, Chair. Our Director of Operations, Jay Ramos, will be presenting this.
Great.
Good morning, Chair Campbell, Board of Directors. The units that we identified having exceeded the useful life. No actions that define them surplus. The replacement are here and in service. So on the back of photos, if you want to bid on. So, any questions for Ms. Moore?
No, so good.
How much is the F-150 gonna sell
Yeah.
for?
It has a crack frame, so, we won't be selling it.
It did say scrap, yeah. Yeah. God, yeah, how did they crack the frame on that? Something else. All right. Any comments from the public on this before we, take an action? Oh, afterwards, okay, thank you. Yeah, so if there's anyone in the public who wants to address the board on this, please approach the podium or raise your hand. If you're online. Casing no one, closing public comment, if we can have a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Jerry.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kim. A motion is second. Any final words? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? All right, seeing, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, so, our acting manager suggests we put 16 and 17 together, which I think is a great idea. It is 16 is approved resolution 2023-14, authorizing the purchase of Caterpillar 725 truck using the preferential competitive pricing offered through Sourcewell, formerly known as National Joint Powers Alliance. And approved resolution 2023-15, authorizing the purchase of a new Caterpillar 966 loader using the same method of pricing. Helen?
Thank you. So, the request here is to approve the resolution to purchase both the Caterpillar 725 water truck and the new Caterpillar 966 loader, which will be presented by the Director of Operations, Jamie Ross.
Good morning again. We have a strategy to, that by 2026, that we will have, the cleanest burning engine out there. So these two units are part of that replacement plan. Before you have the quotes for them, one thing that's good is that price is locked in. So any future increases will not apply. So, once we receive them, we'll come to the board or so, but it's a normal replacement. It is in the capital budget plan. And so if you have any questions, I'll take them at that time.
Great. Good plan to me. Any questions from the board? No, all right, and is there any public comment on these two items which we're hearing together? Please raise your hand if you're online or come to the podium. All right, thank you, Ida. We'll close public comment on items 16 and 17. If we can have a motion to approve both of these at the same time, I appreciate it.
I'll move approval of 16 and 17.
Thank you, Wendy.
Second.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, we have a motion second, no final comments. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Jay.
You're welcome.
And we're moving on to staff reports, review finance operating and the recycling reports.
So this morning, our county manager, Greg Gartson, will be presenting the results for October.
Morning, everybody. Good to see you again. We are a third of the way through fiscal 2024, and in a summary, things are looking pretty positive. Our revenue year to date is practically right on budget. We're about 1.6% over. We got a couple of items that are, above and below. Power revenue continues to be below budget just because of higher maintenance and repair costs that have been incurred on the LFG system. However, we're seeing very positive results from the MRF product. Sales continue to be strong. The prices are continuing to stay up. And looking at just in the month of October, Several of the items, the prices did go up a little bit, so that's all a very positive thing. Our operating expenses are over plan a little bit, a couple of items in there. As I mentioned, the LFG maintenance costs are impacting our environmental services line. We've spent a fair amount of money on erosion control materials for the landfill site, getting in preparation for the winter months coming. And October was an unusual month in that, as you all know, the MRF was down for 2 or 3 weeks during the month, so we couldn't process any material through there. However, we were still receiving material, and we did ship a lot of material off-site to another facility. And that cost us about $170,000 in transportation costs to transfer that material to them. So that was a one-off in the month of October. For the year-to-date bottom line, we're about practically right on plan. You know, our operating income is a little below plan. However, we have had the benefit of selling off surplus equipment. You know, Jay's doing a great job finding people to buy things, and so we've got about $180,000 of revenue that has come in from the sell-off of surplus equipment. And this equipment we just approved as surplus again will generate likely some more revenue in future months. In terms of the landfill activity, our material received is about 8.5% higher than it was for the same period last year. We're about 343,000 tons. Our MRF accepted material is actually down about 9.6. Part of that, the impact of the month of October, when the MRF was down for most of the month. And our diversion rates continue to be at about the same levels as they have been in recent months, with the total MRF diversion rate about 60%. And as I say, that's pretty consistent with what it's been for the past 12, 24 months. Any questions? Be happy to take them.
Thank you for the report. For as usual, question out of pure ignorance. I'm looking at your summary of landfill and MRF tonnage on page 111. And you have total diverted materials, and that is greater than the MRF and the C&D and the single stream recyclable diverted materials. So there must be diverted materials going someplace else. Where's that?
You are correct. Yes. The diverted, but that total diverted materials number does include everything that gets removed somewhere else. You know, the MRF material is the stuff that goes through the MRF. Not everything goes through the MRF that gets diverted. Like, for example, all the wood waste and stuff like that goes to Keith Day. It doesn't go through the MRF. Things like mattresses, you know, they don't go through the MRF, but you know, the tires don't go through the MRF, but you know, they all get diverted. So the total diverted number, yeah, it's going to be different than the MRF diverted number, because you know, the MRF diverted number looks at just the material that goes through and is processed at the MRF.
Okay.
Not a confusion more?
Well, so there's other diversions, like you said, mattresses, and Keep Day's numbers aren't on here under diverted. So
you know, mattresses, tires, concrete. You know, there's a list of other materials which are considered diverted because they don't go to the landfill.
Yeah.
So we are diverting them, but they're not going through the MRF.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Kind of a similar question. I was surprised, I don't have page numbers on my PDF version here, but the unders are 35% of the C&D diversion. What happens with those unders? Do they go to the landfill?
Yeah, goes to the landfill.
But it says C&D diverted materials, so if the unders go to the landfill, why are they considered diverted?
Well,
It's common.
oh yeah, so we get to use them as daily cover at the landfill. So that's considered diverted. Because it's not being true, it's not considered the same as MSW or other material, which just goes out there and gets buried.
Is that what David was gonna say?
Yes, it's a beneficial reuse.
Yeah.
It's replacing native materials that could be excavated at the landfill. So the sand that gets excavated at the landfill, that's what they would use as cover if they didn't have those unders. So we're not mining a native material. So that's taking the place of that.
So instead of taking sand from a river and using it for.
But we don't take from the river. Instead of taking sand from the natural bluff that's here on site, mining new sand, which we do sell as a building material, instead of using that sand, which has value, we're using these unders, and that's why it's split.
Good keep.
That one.
All right. Anyone else? Right. Thank you very much, guys. Another great report. Very sweet. All right, moving on to item 19, which is report on technical advisory committee, SB 1383.
And presenting this information will be like for communications and public education. Is there any?
Good morning, board. I'm here to report on the October 11th meeting of the Technical Advisory Committee. A few items that were discussed. I'm happy to report that as of yesterday, 2 days ago, we submitted the second round of funding for the CalRecycle Local Assistance grants. So if you recall, a couple years ago when SB 1383 was first implemented, there was a round of funding which was approximately $20,000 for each of your member jurisdictions, which we pooled and utilized towards programs for SB 1383 as a region. This time, they have allocated a base award of $75,000 for each jurisdiction. That is the amount based upon population of each of your jurisdictions, with the exception of the County of Monterey, who gets more, will receive. It's a non-competitive grant. And so that makes the entire amount of money that our county will receive between 1.3 and $1.4 million. It's fantastic to help us implement these programs. Of that, $600,000 that will be ReGen specific funding from the member jurisdiction pool. So there's some programs that we share with Salinas Valley Recycles and the county, and there's some that we undergo alone. Those topics, those areas of focus that we're looking to work on, and this is mostly regional, have to do with education, outreach, and technical assistance. This is mostly to our commercial and multifamily properties in the area, making sure they have the infrastructure in place to be able to divert the food scraps in their organics cart. So that'll be some of the work that we're doing. Next item is a continuation of outreach to generators. Think grocery stores, restaurants, hotels, event venues, cafeterias, to make sure that they have what they need to adequately provide additional food that they're not using to feeding organizations locally. So there'll be some education, outreach, technical assistance there. Also happy to report that we will be covering the cost for all of your member agencies for procurement of compost. That's a portion of the legislation that says that you have to buy back the compost that your community generates. We had funding for that in the last round of grants through mid-2025. We'll continue that to the end of 2026. So that's a cost that none of your jurisdictions have had to incur as of yet, which is, I think, a real benefit, that it's not an additional cost. And the last item is enforcement readiness. So as we move into 2024, we're completing the first 2 years of an educational period of this law. As of 2024, that's when the enforcement is able to begin. So what we're really looking for, what CalRecycle is really looking for, is to make sure that all commercial and multifamily properties indeed have diversion, have a green cart at their facility, and we're looking for 100% compliance on that. So there's a lot of work that each of your jurisdictions are doing to make sure that there's outreach happening and a lot of contact, and those carts are in place. And if they're not in place and there's any resistance, how are you all, your staff are working through how to get that 100% enforcement, the 100% compliance rather, with each one of those properties. So as a part of the grant, we're looking to generate a toolkit that will assist staff with resources, sample letters, outreach materials, that sort of thing, to make the jobs of your city staff and county staff easier as we move forward through the enforcement process. Enforcement is the one piece of the legislation that jurisdictions are required to tackle themselves, and ReGen is not enabled to assist with. So this is how we're assisting, providing that toolkit. And we're sharing resources as well through the Technical Advisory Committee. Item number 2 is the edible food recovery inspections by Blue Stripe. We hired Blue Stripe Environmental to go out to those grocery stores, hotels, restaurants, that sort of thing, state agency cafeterias, to make sure that they have written agreements with feeding organizations in place to donate their edible food. So there's direct technical outreach in 100% of your communities to make sure that those people who are required to donate food have a mechanism, a contract in place to do so. And we also have a database that provides, it's called Recyclist, that provides record keeping for each of the member jurisdictions to be able to report back to CalRecycle in an easy way. Last item, CalRecycle local assistance and market development representatives Laura Chain and Melissa Vargas have been going to many of your communities and looking at the implementation of various legislation in the area. Green waste or the hauler, Monterey disposal, waste management is accompanying them to make sure that the visits are informed. And Melissa and Laura wanted to come to a ReGen Monterey and see what type of infrastructure we had to also be able to support. So we were happy to tour them around. I think they were here for about 3 hours, which is a pretty extensive tour. And they paid special attention to the compost facility and were really, I think, impressed by the entire organization and the state that we're in. So a special shout out to our technical advisory committee chair, Mike Mickham, who I'm happy to, he's always on the call, which is so great. But to have him here in person today is fantastic. And Ted Strauss, they have really been leading the way, and you know, CalRecycle has been leaning in, and it's been very nice to see the involvement and collaboration. Happy to answer any questions.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
On your tour with those two representatives, did they visit the biochar and did they have any comments?
Yes, we toured the whole facility, including the biochar facility. I think they were impressed. That's new technology for us. So I think they were impressed to see the fact that we're exploring different innovations and how that one of them is a soil scientist. So Michael from Keith Day and her got a chance to get into the nitty-gritty of, you know, elements of the compost that makes for a good feedstock for growing in agriculture, and biochar is part of that.
Slight tangent, is the biochar project going along well?
That's not my question to answer.
As far as we know at this time, it's ramping up in its throughput of materials, and they have altered their inputs at times of material type to assess the pros and cons of different material types.
Thank you. Thanks. Good question.
All right, any other questions from the board?
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all the great work you guys are doing with the TAC. That's just, yeah.
Great report.
Thanks. All right. Moving on, I didn't see any other correspondence. I didn't see either, but I assume we have no other. Okay, so we'll move on to general manager communications, and hi Joan for stepping up and filling in for Felipe today.
Thank you, Fred. I'd like to turn the mic over to our Director of Operations, Guy Petrovic, who will be introducing his newest member.
Engineering and compliance.
Oh, great.
We do operational support in that role. Good morning again. If you recall, it wasn't too many months ago that the board approved a new position in the engineering and compliance department, and that was for a project manager role. And I'm pleased to be here today to introduce the new member to the team. The role is to assist in project delivery to the operations. That's the overarching aspect of this position, is to help deliver projects. Projects come in all shapes and sizes. And we're fortunate to have found an individual who has a wealth of experience. So I'd like to introduce Johnny Van Dyke. Johnny lives in Hollister with his wife and a daughter and son, and has over 25 years of construction industry experience in various roles. And what's great about Johnny is that he's seen the practice from those different roles, from entry level to top level. He most recently he's been involved with two partners, private enterprise, delivering affordable housing. So a great mission for the community. And before that partnership, he was also involved in affordable housing construction, and has a wealth of experience. Coincidentally, David Ramirez of the senior engineering department had a prior work experience with Johnny that came back to memory during the interview process.
You didn't go back to haunt it.
Certainly not.
No. So the historic experience actually aligned with the independent evaluation of the interview experience. So very pleased to have Johnny on the team. He's going to be useful at conceptualizing projects, to have that construction experience in the use of facilities. Having that experience helps inform how one proceeds in developing a new project. And having entry-level engineers and operations staff, I think he'll be a good mentor to facility care and information about facility use. So, Donnie, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So, Felipe was kind enough to leave me a few notes. So the first item is our composting operations. Michael Brodovich, the compost operations at Keep Day, ReGen Monterey's on-site composting contractor, was featured in a video by RioTemp. And RioTemp is a globally recognized U.S. manufacturer of temperature and pressure gauges. And so Keep Day has successfully implemented their this called compost watch system, which regulates the temperature of the compost piles. So instead of trying to go in there and putting a thermometer in there, it's constantly regulated. You can do it by his telephone and so forth. And so it's wireless, and it proves all the piles from the mobile devices, and they can give access actually to their purchasers. So who wants to be sure that it reaches the temperature that they want. And it's a lot easier for them to monitor whether it has reached the level, that the temperature level, to make it a safe compost for use. So they have that. The videos celebrate Keep Day's company's reputation as a trusted supplier for local agriculture and an industry leader in manufacturing, and highlights how they continue to use innovation in their practices. So if you would like to watch the video, it's about a 3 to 5 minute video. It's posted on our website, our social media channels, or our at riotemp.com/conference. So if you can't find it there, please reach out to any of us, and we'll gladly send you the video. The second item I have for you today is just a reminder about the holiday event. If you have not done so yet, please send your RSVP, or later after the meeting, please feel free to just let us know you will be attending, and if you will be with us. And it was a fun event last year. We already have, I would say about 70 to 75 RSVP, and last year we only had 50. So it's gonna be, it will be at Salinas Fox Theater this year, and it's on December 2nd. So just kind of random. The next item, many of you may be aware that we have been providing employee site tours. So we've been providing all our employees a driving tour of the facility so that everyone is aware of what is going on through the facility and what each of the operations do. So we have recently completed that, or I believe, is that right? We have recently completed that, and we will continue to provide those for any new employees we bring on board. So it's been beneficial because a lot of our team members are stuck or are not able to see. So especially like the Merck, they're like, oh wow, I didn't know you guys did that. Oh yeah. So it really highlights and it kind of when we bring things to them, and now we're letting everyone know about what we're doing here at the board. They're like, yeah, I know what that they're talking about. So it's beneficial for the team, and thank you to the project team for actually hosting all these tours and speaking both in Spanish and English. And the management team has been the one driving the vans. I always tell them, just make sure ambulance is on the way because I'm the worst driver there is. So recently, Felipe attended the LULAC 50th anniversary Black and Whites Ball sponsorship. ReGen Monterey sponsored LULAC's 50th anniversary on October 21st, and it supports higher education, cultural awareness, and community service. They serve hundreds of students with financial support in pursuit of their college degrees, and we are a proud sponsor and community partner for LULAC. And then there was an evening of hope with Paul Hawken, and ReGen was proud to be a presenting sponsor of an event, an evening of hope with renowned climate expert Paul Hawken. And we had quite a few members of our team attend that, as well as Kim, Director Kim Shirley was there as well. And it was sponsored by Sustainable Monterey County and Monterey County Rotary Club, and held at CSUMB on October 25th. ReGen staff and board members enjoyed hearing about strategies to end the climate crisis in one generation. And as part of our sponsorship, Mr. Hawkins spoke. Felipe was able to share ways ReGen is partnering with the community to assist with reduction of waste and emissions. And Felipe would like to thank staff, board members, and the leadership team for their attendance. And last but not least, Felipe and our Director of Human Resources, Berta, attended a whiteboard webinar by Patrick Lencioni, and it is a webinar on effective meetings. They discussed 4 types of meetings, increasing meeting effectiveness, and how Working Genius can help make meetings less terrible and more productive. It was touted as, the event was touted as the perfect for anyone who is leading a meeting, attending a meeting, tired of meetings, and or is the problem in meetings. So I unfortunately was not able to attend that one, but I understand it was a very, very productive webinar. And a lot of it is things that we look forward to implementing for our meetings. And that's about it.
Great. Did they learn anything about these meetings or?
Sticking to the agenda is critical.
But wait, I gotta get to something else here. Thank you, Marshall, and we'll try and stick to the agenda, but speaking of that, I'm gonna flip 2 things here. We're gonna go to the election of board officers. We had a nominating committee, and we'll come back to board communications after that. And Wendy and the Leo, do you have a recommendation for us?
Leo and I had a great conversation about our nominating committee. And we, on behalf of the nominating committee, would like to nominate Kim Shirley as chair for the next year and Mayor Bill Peak as vice chair.
No.
Sorry, did I get that backwards?
No, to Mayor Keefe or Mayor?
Sorry. did I-
Marina.
Sorry,
Sorry.
I mixed up my mayors.
We look a lot alike.
Mayors. Kim Shirley as our chair and Mayor Bruce Salgado as our vice chair. Thank you.
Thank you for the nominations. All right, but before we take action on this and do the election, are there any comments from the board? Yeah, Phil.
Great selections.
I agree too. It'll be funny. It'll be fun to have Kim there and you try and keep Bruce in line. It'll be.
Oh, I'll do my best.
Chaos coordinator.
All right. Are there any comments from the public on this, on these nominations before we have this election?
Just a comment that it's been amazing. I think you've been chair for the entire time that I've been on this board. And I've really appreciated your leadership and thank you, Jason, for just everything you've given to ReGen.
No, thank you very much. Mike. That's very nice of you. All right.
I want to say thank you to Jane Parker before Wendy and Wendy now. They've been a steady influence on the nominating committee. It's not something that people really like to do. So someone always needs to do it. And they've been very generous of their time to basically be our standing nominating committee president.
And Leah, right?
Leo too.
Leo too. I promise I'm never gonna do it again. I don't know. I believe the chair will likely be, can actually nominate you. I don't think you have to be a member of the board. All right.
And Jason, I want to thank you for your excellent job and leadership as well. And you're still going to be here, right?
No. We'll go to board communications after this.
Stick with me again.
So we have a nominating committee. I'll take that as a motion to
I'll make that a motion.
thank you. A motion is second from the nominating committee. All those in favor?
Excuse me, you may want to add your motion, just the term commencing and continuing.
Okay.
So that's part of the rest.
Thank you. This begins on January 1st, 2024 through the entire year. And I just to throw this in traditionally, it's usually been a kind of 2-year thing that from my experience, but obviously the board can do whatever they like at the end of the year. So so that's the motion on the table to elect chair and vice chair for the year of 2024. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right. It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and congratulations, and we'll move on to board communication. Bruce?
The general manager's report talked a lot about temperature at the greenways. And I have a relevant story. There are invasive weeds that cause problems in wildlands. And sometimes they start in urban areas and they move out to wildlands. And so agricultural often is adjacent to riparian or other wildlands. And I took a truckload of something called French broom a couple days ago to our green waste and dumped it off and talked to the workers there. They said that the temperature gets up to 140. I think that's maybe the ideal temperature. I'm not sure, but he said it gets up to 140. And some of the worst weeds, like French broom, are fire adapted. So after fire, they germinate. So their seeds respond to the heat, and fire often gets hotter than 140 degrees. on the surface than just beneath the surface where these weeds, seeds reside. And so, that's something we probably have to look into because, they need to be safe, it needs to be safe, that was the term used, safe, and I think you meant, bacterium and other things that are health hazards to people. But that is something that we probably need to be careful of, because I'm never sure if I should throw away to the landfill my weed seeds
Yes,
or put them in the yard waste.
yes, the sleep room, fresh room should definitely go to landfill. I think.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up. That is actually on our list of items, organic items that are to be landfill, along with poison oak and some of the more like fibrous palm fronds and that sort of thing. So apologies if you were directed to the compost yard. We'll get with our operator.
Yeah, they asked, do you have ice plant, yucca,
Yeah.
succulents that are gonna gum up the process?
Mhm.
But then there would be a long list of bioadapted weeds that can endure 140 degrees, not just French broom. So it's a big issue. I
It
just
is.
want to just touch on it.
It is, and my understanding, as well as that it's seasonal, I'm not a biologist, but my understanding is that French broom is a seasonal issue, so depending on when it's pulled, it may or may not be able to be composted because the seeds aren't there to be able to spread. That said, for communications purposes to our public, we are landfilling it, year round so that we don't run into this issue when we're not spreading French broom around the community, so
Yeah.
we'll make sure to follow up on that with our operations staff.
Okay, and then just a tiny brief thing. City Marina has recently changed their agenda format to make meetings briefer by adding to the public communications of items not on the agenda at the start of the meeting, but consent agenda. It was a recommendation by our city attorney. So now we say, okay, we're gonna go to public comment. If anyone has anything to say about stuff that's not on the agenda or the consent agenda. So you get two public comments out of the way in one public comment. And it's working well, and I suggested it to MST, so it's possible they'll start to do it, I don't know. But I would suggest that we look into that, the pros and cons of that.
Thank you. We'll be on your plate next. Yeah, and any other board members? I do have a announcement to make that I am planning to, or I am resigning from the board as of the end of this year. So since we have no meetings scheduled for, my personal life has changed a little bit. And last year I did not run for reelection, so I no longer haven't been on the council for a year. And even though there is one year left in my term, the city will fill that out. And since we all sign up for 4-year terms here, the city will appoint someone. And I'm not sure if that's for the duration of the term or if it's for 4 years. I'll leave that to legal to figure out. And so
Do we
anyway.
have to accept this resignation? I mean, is it like that, who accepts, like you offer it, but.
Yeah, I just might not show up. But yeah, anyway, it's been just wonderful being on this board. This is absolutely my favorite board, absolutely, without a doubt. So thank you, everybody, for making it that, staff and just, who would have thought that trash could be so much fun?
We are gonna miss you, Jason. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't, I like following Leo's lead. All right, just thought I'd let you know. Thank you, everybody. There's no closed session items, so we have no closed session. So we are going to adjourn this meeting since we don't have a meeting in December, which is traditional for the holidays. To next meeting date is January 19th, 2024, and we go to. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.